She was young, brilliant, and full of light. Cynthia Osokogu, the only daughter in a close-knit Nigerian family. To her parents, she was more than their child. She was a dream wrapped in laughter, a promise of tomorrow. Born in 1985, Cynthia grew up in the northern city of Jos. Her parents raised her with discipline, faith, and ambition. She was the kind of daughter who made things happen, who turned small ideas into real achievements. As she grew, her curiosity turned into purpose. She excelled in school, driven not just by grades, but by a hunger to create something of her own. At Nasarawa State University, she studied public administration, a course that mirrored her love for structure, organization, and impact. But it wasn't a classroom that defined her, it was her spirit. Cynthia was an entrepreneur at heart. While others were content with routine, she dreamed of independence, of running her own business, building her brand, carving her path in a fast-changing world. She started small, a boutique that imported and sold fashion items. It was a bold move for a young woman still navigating life after school. But Cynthia believed in the beauty of hard work. She sold clothes with a smile, handled customers with grace, and never stopped talking about expansion. She was, as her friends called her, a one-woman army. But dreams in the digital age can attract both light and shadows. It was the early 2010s. Facebook was booming across Nigeria. For millions, it was more than a social platform. It was connection, opportunity, and curiosity. A place to share pictures, ideas, and, for people like Cynthia, business ventures. She wasn't addicted to it. She was strategic. She used Facebook to grow her network, reach new customers, and connect with people who seemed interested in fashion. But behind friendly messages and profile pictures, deception can wear a smile. That's where the story begins to shift. In 2012, Cynthia received a Facebook message from a man named Akwamonwa Buffo. He introduced himself as a businessman, polished, confident, and kind. He told her he admired her entrepreneurial drive, that he could help her grow her boutique with imported goods and wholesale contacts. The chats were professional at first, discussions about business, markets, and partnerships. Soon, his friend Olasaloka Isaac joined conversation. Two men, both educated, both convincing. They seemed trustworthy, and Cynthia, ever optimistic, saw potential, not threat. They spoke for weeks. They exchanged numbers. They planned meetings. Cynthia believed they were legitimate contacts who could help her source goods from abroad. They spoke about fabrics, supply chains, and even potential deals in Lagos. For a woman chasing her dream, this sounded like the kind of opportunity she had been waiting for. But what she didn't know was that the profiles, the business talk, the promises were all bait. On July 21st, 2012, Cynthia boarded a flight from Abuja to Lagos. She told her friends and family she was traveling for business, to meet potential partners who could help her expand. For her, this was normal. She often traveled across states to restock her boutique. But this trip would be her last. At the airport, she smiled at a fellow passenger, holding her handbag and a folder filled with notes. Her phone buzzed with new messages from her business partners, confirming her hotel booking, Cosmilla Hotel, Festac Town. Festac, a bustling district in Lagos, full of hotels, traffic, and unspoken secrets. That night, the city moved as usual, laughter spilling from bars, car horns echoing down narrow streets. But in one corner of Festac, in a modest hotel room, a trap was being prepared. Aquamo and Olasaloka checked in earlier, under the guise of businessmen awaiting a client. They were calm, organized, and disturbingly polite. They had done this before. When Cynthia arrived, she greeted them warmly, unaware that every smile in that room was rehearsed. The men ordered food, made small talk, and asked about her boutique. Everything seemed normal, until it wasn't. Court documents later revealed what happened next, a chilling timeline of betrayal. After dinner, Cynthia was offered a drink, one that had been laced with Rohypnol, a potent sedative. Within minutes, her body began to weaken. Confused, disoriented, she asked for water. The men watched. They weren't helping her. They were waiting. As she tried to steady herself, they attacked. tie her hands and legs using belts and tape. She struggled, begged, pleaded, but the drugs had already taken hold. They robbed her, taking her phones, jewelry, and cash. But greed wasn't the only motive. They beat her, then, in a brutal moment of cruelty, strangled her to death. By morning, Cynthia was gone. The men left the hotel calmly, pretending nothing had happened. They checked out, carrying her belongings in a small bag. In the room they left behind, silence and a body, unrecognized, unnamed, alone. Hotel staff found her later, lying lifeless on the bed. Her ID was missing. Her phone was gone. In the police records, she was first listed as Jane Doe. At that moment, miles away in Jos, Cynthia's parents began to worry. She hadn't called. She hadn't sent a message. For a daughter known to always check in, silence was louder than anything. Her mother called friends, relatives. No one had heard from her. Days passed, each hour heavier than the last. Then, a missing person report was filed. The Lagos police started piecing together clues. They contacted the hotel, reviewed guest logs, and retrieved CCTV footage. There, in grainy black and white, they saw Cynthia entering the hotel with two men, but only the men left alive. Detectives followed the trail, tracing her last known phone calls, banking alerts, and social media messages. Facebook became the key. Her chats with Aquamo and Olusola revealed the connection, the plan, and the deception. Every message was a thread in a digital web, one that led straight to her killers. Within weeks, the police moved in. Both men were arrested, Aquamo Nwabufo and Olusola in Lagos. During interrogation, the mask finally slipped. Their confessions were cold, emotionless, as if Cynthia's life had been a transaction gone wrong. They admitted to meeting her through Facebook, admitted to luring her, admitted to the murder. When the news broke, Nigeria was stunned. A young woman, full of promise, killed by people she met online. It was unthinkable. Headlines screamed, Facebook murder. Social media erupted with grief, anger, disbelief. People began questioning their own online interactions. Parents warned their children. Friends deleted strangers from their contacts. It was no longer just a tragedy. It was a national awakening. The line between the real and digital world had blurred. And in that space, a predator had found a victim. For Cynthia's family, the grief was beyond words. Her mother described her as her only daughter, my best friend. Her father, in quiet disbelief, said she left home with dreams. She came back in a coffin. They traveled to Lagos to identify her body. Her brothers stood silently beside their parents as the sheet was lifted. The air was thick with heartbreak. Cynthia's death wasn't just a crime. It was a mirror held up to society, a reminder of how trust can be manipulated in a world where identity can be faked with a click. Her killers didn't need weapons to gain her confidence. They used charm, lies, and technology. They studied her posts, her photos, her ambitions, and built a narrative she wanted to believe. And in doing so, they turned Facebook, a tool for connection, into a weapon of betrayal. But the story doesn't end here, because even in tragedy, truth finds its way. The investigation would grow, the evidence would mount, and the courtroom would become the final stage for justice. Cynthia's voice may have been silenced, but her story was just beginning to speak. When the rain fell over Lagos that August, it carried more than water. It carried questions. Who were the men who ended Cynthia's life? How could strangers she met online turn a dream into a tragedy that would haunt a nation? The answers would emerge slowly, one layer at a time, through evidence, confessions, and the tireless pursuit of truth. Within weeks of discovering Cynthia's body, detectives from the Lagos State Criminal Investigation Department had traced a web back to two names, Aquamo Nwabufo and Olusola. They were young, educated, confident, men who understood how to wear respectability like a mask. They had not expected to be found so quickly, but Facebook left digital fingerprints that no one could erase. Investigators matched chat records, phone calls, and ATM withdrawals made with Cynthia's stolen card. CCTV footage from Cosmilla Hotel showed the moment she entered with them and never came out. When officers moved in, there was no dramatic chase, just quiet surrender. The men sat, hands cuffed, eyes vacant, as if even they couldn't grasp the gravity of what they had done. In custody, their phones were seized. Inside were messages, not of remorse, but of coordination. Texts about meeting the girl, booking the room, and bringing the drug. Under interrogation, both men spoke. Their words were chillingly casual. They admitted to meeting Cynthia on Facebook. They admitted to luring her with promises of business. They admitted to the murder. Akumo, the older one, said he only wanted to rob her. Osokogu claimed he didn't mean for her to die, but the facts spoke louder than their shifting stories. They described how they had used rohypnol, a sedative powerful enough to erase memory and willpower. They detailed how they tied her hands, how they took turns strangling her with chains. Their account was so methodical it sickened even seasoned officers. One detective later recalled, "They spoke as if they were narrating a movie, but this was no script. This was someone's daughter. Every crime tells a story, and Cynthia's case had one written in traces. The hotel room held fibers, fingerprints, and a half-empty bottle of juice, the drink laced with rohypnol. The CCTV showed timestamps matching the men's check-in and check-out. Her phone records revealed the messages leading her there. Autopsy reports confirmed what the police already feared: death by strangulation after sedation. Piece by piece, the puzzle formed an unshakable picture of guilt. Visual cue: detectives pinning photos to a board. Cynthia, the suspects, the hotel, the timeline. But justice in Nigeria can be slow. And for Cynthia's family, each day waiting for the trial felt like reliving the crime. Back in Jos, Cynthia's home was draped in quiet. Her mother sat surrounded by photographs, birthdays, graduation, her first boutique. Every image seemed to ask the same question: why? Friends came by with condolences, prayers, food, but nothing filled the silence she left behind. Her father, once a strong man who rarely cried, was seen at dawn walking alone through their compound, whispering prayers no one could hear. Her brothers tried to be pillars to her parents, but they too were breaking inside. When the body was released for burial in September 2012, the entire community gathered. There were no speeches grand enough for loss. Only tears, hymns, and a coffin lowered into red earth. Her mother said softly she wanted to build her future. They sent her back in silence. The Lagos High Court in Igbosir, Judge Justice Olabisi Akinlade presiding. The defendants, Akumo Nwabufo and Olusola Zaik, stood in the dock, dressed in plain clothes, guarded by officers. Around them, reporters filled benches. Cameras waited outside. For 3 years, every hearing would draw attention, a nation watching justice crawl forward. The prosecution presented evidence meticulously. They called detectives, forensic experts, hotel staff. Each witness painted the same dark picture. CCTV footage. Cynthia entering the hotel with the accused. Phone data. Calls between them before and after murder. Autopsy findings. Bruises, rope marks, traces of rohypnol. Recovered items. Her stolen phone, found with one of the accused relatives. The defense tried to cast doubt. They claimed coerced confessions. They questioned the chain of evidence. But truth leaves footprints no argument can erase. Every time Cynthia's photograph was shown, her mother looked away. Her father sat rigid, hands clasped, the picture of endurance. Each witness statement reopened the wound. A forensic expert described how the drug drink worked. A pathologist detailed the bruising on her neck. The courtroom fell into silence as those words hung heavy in the air. Reporters scribbled notes. Some wiped their eyes. Even the judge's voice softened when addressing Cynthia's parents. Justice Akinlade would later note, the evidence was overwhelming, the cruelty unimaginable. But justice is not swift. Years passed, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, with adjournments, cross-examinations, and motions. For Cynthia's family, time stood still. Each delay was a reminder that while the accused could still breathe, their daughter could not. March 23, 2017, 5 years after the murder, The courtroom was packed beyond capacity. Reporters from every major outlet stood shoulder to shoulder, notebooks ready. The air was electric with anticipation and dread. Justice Olabisi Akinlade began to read her judgment. She recounted every detail, the evidence, the testimonies, the contradictions. Her voice never wavered. Then came the words that silenced the room. The prosecution has proven beyond reasonable doubt that the first and second defendants, Akumo Nwabufo and Oluseloka Zik, are guilty of the murder of Miss Cynthia Osokogu. The sentence, death by hanging. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Some cried. Others whispered prayers of relief. Cynthia's mother wept openly, clutching a photograph of her daughter to her chest. Her father closed his eyes, not in joy, but in final acceptance that the long road had ended. Justice had spoken, but justice here could not bring peace, because nothing could bring Cynthia back. The verdict made national news. Commentators debated cyber safety, law enforcement, and moral decay. Online, Nigerians shared tributes under the hashtag Justice for Cynthia. Parents reminded their children to be cautious with strangers online. Workshops on digital awareness multiplied across universities. Schools used her story as a case study in the dangers of blind trust. For once, tragedy sparked education. Her name became more than a headline. It became a lesson. Across Nigeria, conversations began to shift. People no longer saw Facebook or Instagram as harmless playgrounds. They began to question, who are the people behind these screens? Cybercrime units received more funding. Awareness campaigns were launched. And in small, personal ways, lives were changed. A cautious friend, a second thought before trusting too quickly. Cynthia's story reminded a generation that safety was not paranoia. It was survival. In prison, the convicted men waited as appeals crawled through system. They spoke to journalists occasionally, always insisting on regret, sometimes shifting blame. But regret means little when weighed against the life they stole. For them, time stood still too. But unlike Cynthia, they could still see the sunrise. Each year on her birthday, Cynthia's family lights candles and plays her favorite gospel song. Friends visit, bringing flowers. They talk about her laugh, her stubborn drive, her generosity. Her boutique, long closed, remains untouched, shelves still holding pieces of fabric she once sold. Her mother keeps one of her dresses folded neatly, untouched since 2012. She says she can still smell her perfume on it. In moments like these, the story stops being about crime and becomes about love, the kind that refuses to fade even after the world moves on. Cynthia's story is not just Nigerian. It is universal, a cautionary tale for the digital era, where connection and danger live side by side. She was not reckless. She was ambitious. She believed in people, and that belief was used against her. Every time someone accepts a friend request from a stranger, somewhere her story whispers, be careful. Ask questions. Trust but verify. From tragedy came awareness. From pain came policy. From loss came voices determined to make sure it never happens again. Universities invited cybersecurity experts to speak. Nonprofits began campaigns teaching young people, especially women, how to vet online contacts, verify business partners, and protect themselves. Cynthia's mother, though broken by loss, became an advocate for digital safety, telling audiences, if I can save one daughter, Cynthia's death won't be in vain. Her courage turned mourning into movement. Her story, retold again and again, became not a tale of death, but a call to life. Cynthia Osokogu's story is not about how she died. It's about how easily good people could be deceived. It's about the thin line between trust and danger, between ambition and vulnerability. She was a daughter, a friend, a dreamer. She believed in progress, in possibility, in people, and that belief cost her everything. But her legacy endures in every young woman who pauses before meeting a stranger, in every parent who teaches her child that caution is not fear, and in every heartbeat that remembers her name. She was Cynthia Osokogu, and her story will never be forgotten. A few years down the line, something terrible and devastating has again happened to the family of late Cynthia. This will really make you sad. and also shatter your heart. We will bring you the story in our next series. If you have not subscribed to this channel, Unveiling True Crime, please do it now, and also click the notification bell so you can know when the next story on the family of late Cynthia drops. Thank you.